Methanol versus E85. Today we got to test those back to back and see the difference. We also got to see how methanol does with an intercooler. Most people are going to pull the intercooler off when going to methanol, but we wanted to do a back-to-back test to see the comparisons, and we got to do some good testing here with the KRAKEN, Stephen Little. A very cool car to get to test on. So we're going to show you guys some pulls today and show you guys the comparisons and what we learned.
Alright guys, before we jump into these dyno tests and show you some cool numbers, I want to give you a little bit of a rundown on the setup on the car. It is a aluminum 5.3 liter. It has the BTR forged rotating assembly. It was all assembled by Stephen himself. It has the KRAKEN heads on it, and it has a BTR custom cam and BTR spec valve train as well. A Holley ultra low ram intake with the 16 Bosch 210 injectors. We only used 8 of them on E85 and then all 16 of them on methanol. It has some S372 turbos, and all the tuning done before this point was done by Stephen himself, and then I jumped in and did all of the fueling and everything for swapping it over to methanol. We maintain the same timing map, and yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for you. If you need any more information on the combo, make sure you reach out to Stephen Little, KRAKENRaceSupply.com, and I'm sure they can get you anything that you need. Alright, so there you guys have it. There are all the E85 dyno numbers: 737 wheel horsepower on 10 psi dome pressure, 1212 on 30 psi, and 1345 on 30 psi, plus a little bit of nitrous express help on top of that. So very impressive numbers there. Stephen had done all of the tuning up to this point, just to make that clear, and this is where I jumped in and started to do the fuel side of things on methanol. We left the timing the same, but I made all of the changes on methanol and did some individual corrections and all that as well in between pulls. Anyways, let's jump right into the methanol testing. So first off, we started on the same dome pressure that we did on E85, 10 psi, and let's jump right into that, and I'll give you guys some data overlay as well.
Some methanol. A17, dang.
Alright guys, so this was just the first pull on methanol and on very low boost, but we actually learned a lot of good things on this one, so I wanted to go over some of that with you. So as you can see, the peak power we made there was 817, and here in just a second I'll compare that with what we did on E85. But something I want to point out is this little gain in power up here around 7,000 RPM. So let's go look at the data log and see if we can figure out why we got that there, and also why the peak right here is a little higher, and then it kind of falls off. So let's go over the data log real quick. So here is that peak right here. You can see the boost kind of whenever it swings in, it kind of overshoots a little bit and then falls back down. So that's why we made that peak right there whenever it all came in. But then let's go here around 7,000 where we had that that other little pickup in power. And if you look at the O2 right here, you can see that it leaned itself out some and then richened back up there. So let's go back over to that dyno graph, and you can see it picked up there, or it leaned out. So that gave us an idea that it wanted to be leaner. The reason that it leaned out is you can see the TPS up here was giving us some issues and jumping up and down. It actually caused it to turn off closed loop and just threw our fueling off a little bit there. So even though that was an issue, it actually helped us learn. So that was good information there. Now let's go over here and compare it to E85. There you can see the bold red lines. That is the E85 pull. So let's go over here, like 4,000 RPM. You can see on the methanol, we were up 37 wheel horsepower and around 30 foot-pounds of torque. That right there is where you're going to see some pretty significant gains in spool time and converter flash and all that. So that's one of the big benefits of methanol, especially on a small motor with fairly large turbos, is all these gains down here. You can see at 4,500 the gains were even bigger. So that's going to make a big difference right there in spool time and just torque in general. And of course the peak numbers, we had a pretty significant gain there to 80 wheel horsepower, and it looks like a little more than that in torque. So pretty interesting to see. I also want to move this over to mile per hour and show you just how much quicker the methanol came up as far as wheel speed. You can see that it spooled much faster, and also of course making more peak power all the way through. And once again, the timing stayed the same on these pulls, the only difference being the fuel. So pretty good data here. Now let's jump into the next pull where we turned it up to 20 psi dome pressure.
Really good numbers.
Alright guys, so as you can see, that pull kind of sucked. We only picked up 40 something wheel horsepower with 10 psi dome pressure, and you can actually see up top that it laid over and actually made much less than whenever it had less dome pressure, especially up top. It just kept getting worse and worse. So let's go over and look at the log and see if we can figure out why that happened. So as you can see, here's the log. You can see the TPS up here is acting funny again, and you can see the O2 down here. That is the air fuel ratio that the engine is running at, was way down low at 3.233 air fuel. The TPS jumping around like this made it not go into closed loop and not pull the fuel out of it that it needed. I leave the base map on the rich side whenever I am tuning a new combo, just so it can use the closed loop to pull it back to my target. But with the TPS messing up like that, of course, it was not able to pull any fuel out of it and just kept it super rich. I'll pull up over here the 20 psi pull. You can see that it corrected it and pulled the air fuel up where I had the target, and you can see the TPS held flat at 100 right there. So that's what happened there. I thought it was interesting to see also that it actually, as the pull continued with it being that rich, it just got worse and worse. So that really showed us that it did not like being that rich at all. So from here we made a few more pulls on 30 psi and leaned it out a little bit. I'll also real quick compare this to 30 psi on E85, so you can see we actually made less power than we did on E85 on that one as well. Now let's get into the other pulls on 30 psi, and then we'll talk a little bit about them after.
That's better.
guys, so here are the 30 psi methanol pulls minus the 1225 pull. We accidentally didn't set the TPS again on that one, and it didn't correct again, and fattened it up a little bit more than we wanted it to, so we lost some power on that one. But we got that issue corrected and pulled some fuel out, and then made the 1299. And actually we had another separate O2 issue on that one. We ended up having the engine temp be slightly below the temperature that it needed to be to turn on closed loop, so that actually did not give us closed loop on that one either, and it actually made it end up a little bit leaner than I was originally targeting. So I was a little bit worried to keep leaning it out, just because the air fuel numbers were scaring me a little bit, even though the plug and everything looked happy. I'm just not used to seeing this lean of an air fuel on methanol, especially at this boost level. But I think that just comes down to the intercooler, and also Fuel Tech O2 just seems to read significantly leaner than Holley. So, I was a little scared to lean it out, but that one kind of worked out for us, and leaning it out for us and showing us that it picked up a lot of power. You can see that it carries out much better whenever it is leaner, and of course we gained quite a bit peak as well. And I'll go ahead and bring up the E85 pull on the same dome pressure just to compare that. Let me close some of these other ones so we can see it a little bit better. So here's the best pull on methanol, and the best on, or the only one on E85, but you can see we picked up around the same that we had picked up at lower boost, and of course quite a bit down low as well. So I was pretty happy there. Now let's go ahead and turn it up a little bit and make some more pulls, and then we'll turn on the nitrous. Guys, so final pull of the night with the nitrous on, we made 1453. You can see here it is compared to the pull before that. Picked up a lot down low with that nitrous, and you could just tell from watching the video too how it just comes alive right away when that nitrous sprays. So also I want to show Steven made one more pull the next day with a little bit more dome pressure on it, and the fueling cleaned up a little bit more. So this is the comparison of those, and you can see that he made right at 1500 wheel horsepower, and that actually took the dyno record for this specific dyno. So that was pretty cool, and we were pretty happy with that. From there we just decided to take it to the track.
Alright, so now that we showed you guys all the pulls, we're going to go over what we learned, and I thought it was pretty interesting. We learned a lot with the air fuels that we needed to be in, and how much pickier it gets at higher boost, and also just the difference in air fuel running a intercooler versus the non-intercooled Fuel Tech stuff that I've done before. Needed to be quite a bit leaner, and yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, a lot of this was a new experience for me. I've tuned a couple methanol cars, but typically they were base tuned before, and so I had something to go off of. And this was all new to me. This basically, I've talked to you about different air fuel ratios. I've done my own research, and the funny thing is it ended up wanting to be way leaner than anything that we thought.
Both of us thought.
So, and I think, and we could even go leaner on the plug and add some timing, which is very interesting. I'd really like to see all the pulls were done on the same timing.
Yep.
So E85 versus methanol, so that was interesting, and it really impressed me down low, like how much power that the methanol had just across the board.
Yeah, I think mid-range we saw like 75 horsepower. Where it was just kind of spooling up. Still, there was a big gain there, and And yeah, just it's crazy how much torque the methanol picks up, and you can even kind of tell on the pulls, like it came up a lot faster on the methanol. Like it didn't take as long to get up into boost. So it's pretty interesting to see. I think it's going to be really interesting to see also once it's out on the track and just seeing the comparison there, since obviously you have a lot of data with the car. It's going to be a lot different now with it making some more power at the same boost.
It's going to be fun to try to
throw you
figure out.
off entirely, but but at least you have data to go off of, and I'm sure it'll be pretty quick to get all that kind of corrected and figure out the new normal with it.
Yeah, and I think what the way that we did it in increments is going to be a really good, it's really good data to go off of for me to kind of guess at.
Yeah.
And so, but all in all, man, it's great. I don't really know if I want to take this intercooler off. It didn't seem to have much restriction at all. It's not too heavy.
No.
And the intake air temps were, man, they were great.
Yeah, and I also thought it was really interesting how, like, I was a little bit concerned about the intake air temps being that cold for it to just, not run right or something like that. And I was a little concerned when we turned the nitrous on methanol, if it was going to get too cold to where the fuel just didn't want to atomize properly. But it didn't seem like any issues with that, and it still picked up 100 horsepower,
right?
Yeah, even with like what I think it was like maybe 700 psi bottle pressure. So so it wasn't even, we weren't really getting after that or anything. So also I thought it was interesting that we learned kind of with the plug reading that you had said you didn't have any previous experience, but even with your E85 experience, you were able to look at the plugs and still have, we came to the same conclusions. And just of course the methanol has a lot more headroom, it seems like.
It seems like the timing is a little harder to read.
Yeah.
The fuel the fuel almost looks exactly the same.
Yeah. I feel like with the methanol, you kind of have to get the fuel figured out first, because that's going to change with the timing. And then also once you get the fuel burned to where you would want it to be, you can actually, and then you get the timing where you want it, you can add more fuel, and then that's going to move that timing mark back up usually, and you can add more timing, and it may actually move that heat a little bit on the base ring. So there's a little bit more playing with that you can do on methanol, but it's nice that even just quickly dynoing it, rushing in between pulls.
We only had 2.5 hours or so before 10 o'clock, and so we had a couple mess ups. I'm still relatively new to the fuel tech, where we both are, and so the minimum engine temperature, it never got above the minimum engine temperature, so we had all kinds of correction issues. We wasted about 5 pulls on that, so there's a few. These pulls are back to back. Yeah,
within like most of them were like 9 minutes apart.
Yeah,
so very very quick. But I mean, also I don't think you can ever get to 9 minutes apart on the track, but so we tested it back thoroughly. So.
Yeah, they had a little more. The catch can filled up a little.
Yeah, that was one difference with the methanol for sure.
Yeah, but learned that. Yeah, I learned a lot of new stuff. It was very cool. And luckily, Jack came to help me out. It's a lot easier to have someone like him to come in here and just get you to A to B a whole lot faster than if you were to just kind of learn it and do it on your own. So thank you for coming out and help me out with this.
Of course, and I really appreciate you for bringing me out here and let me play with it and get to see all the cool data that we got to see today. So.
Yeah.